After dinner and breakfast at Wavecrest, we mounted our trusty Jeep Wrangler steeds and headed out for another full day of driving in areas where vehicles are not a common sight. The Wild Coast routes vary from reasonably good gravel to challenging 4x4 tracks, and all that means is you should ideally have a very versatile vehicle such as this Jeep Wrangler Rubicon that we're driving at the moment, which means that you can keep a fairly good pace going when the conditions allow, but of course if it gets rough and tough, the vehicle will have the capability as well. This particular unit, a V6 petrol, it does have rear-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, and then of course the choices of low range plus some diff locks as well. And as we've seen on this route of ours thus far, there's almost nothing that the Wrangler can't do. Even when it gets to open road tar driving, progress is pretty decent, comfort is pretty good, and it does have all the luxury bells and whistles as well. Our route on day 2 would take us from Wavecrest to Mazeppa along paths that had all but disappeared and sections of deep slippery mud. In other words, exactly the kind of conditions that the General Grabber MT Tyre would revel in.
The Grabber MT is what we call an 80-20 or 20-80. So the 20% on-road, 80% off-road, and that's where it's really focused on going, is off-road. A lot more aggressive tread pattern, big tread blocks, and a 3-ply construction, which means it's incredibly tough and far more resistant to sidewall cuts and the like when it goes extreme off-roading. And those tyres are ultra inaggressive, so people do still drive with them on the road, and it certainly makes their vehicle look like it's meant to be off-road.
The Grabber MT tyres were fitted to a Wrangler Sahara, which lacks the diff locks of the Rubicon versions, but still has 4x4 with low range. The more aggressive tyre had a clear advantage in muddy conditions, with its big wide tread blocks easily ejecting the mud and optimising traction.
There'll be specific obstacles, and those where you find there's a lot more mud, thick mud, and that tyre is able to dig through the mud slightly easier. And absolutely, that's what the advantage comes from, is the tread pattern that you see there, which is a lot more aggressive. It does create more noise when you drive on the road, so that's why it is only 20% road biased and 80% off.
It was becoming obvious that the General Grabbers were playing a core role in the ability of the Jeeps to conquer obstacle after obstacle with almost nonchalant ease. While the Jeeps always had sufficient urge and loads of traction, the tremendous grip of the tyres allowed the Wranglers to actually make full use of the urge on offer. In between traversing seemingly impossible 4x4 challenges, there was ample time to marvel at the rural, pristine beauty of the Wild Coast. It remains one of the few relatively unspoilt coastlines in South Africa, probably because it's retained a welcome remoteness, even by real 4x4 standards. While the Grabber MT was undoubtedly the superior tyre in the mud and the slippery stuff, the Grabber 80 was never outclassed and completed every single challenge with confident competence, an exceptional performance for a 50-50 on-road, off-road tyre.
We've done numerous trips over the years, and we've been able to show that it doesn't matter whether it's sand, mud, rock, river crossings, they're capable in all of those. They've done everything that we've asked them to do. There have been no issues. The tyre pressures are perfect, and we've seen when we've stood outside the vehicles how they've performed and flexed, just like we said that they're supposed to.
It's taken us 2 days to travel all of 200 kilometres, which gives you some indication of the terrain we've had to cover on this trip down to the Wild Coast. But then, when you're 4x4ing, it's not really about speed. It's more about experiencing the surroundings and also conquering some pretty challenging obstacles. The good news is we haven't got stuck once. These General 80s have done very, very well, the grabbers in particular, which really are all-terrain tyres both on and off the road, not struggling at all with the conditions. And of course, these Jeep Wrangler Rubicons also doing their best to make sure that we got from one side to the other without any problems at all. Just about all done, certainly proven the point that tyres are important, the right vehicle of course important as well, and that the Wild Coast is definitely worth visiting.
But remember one thing, make sure your vehicle is fitted with the right tyres before you leave.